What's up, YouTube? In this video, we're going to be going over how to kill some late season birds. Let's get straight into this. Alright, fellas, let's just be honest for 1 second. We're all here for the same purpose. You want to kill some late season birds. Many people have tried before, and of course, we've all failed. So, in today's video, we're going to be learning how to do it. We're going to be learning how to get over the hurdle so we can finally get some late season birds, so we can finally brag to all our, friends that we can do it. But besides that, it is class time. Lesson number 1. Adaptability. Now, we all must adapt to the changing weather and the changing times of the season. It's not going to be like the early season where, these gobblers are going to be gobbling their heads off on the roost. You may only hear one gobble, or most likely no gobbles at all, so you must adapt to the situations. So to adapt, you have to line up on the calling, and have to line up on decoying. For all the fellas that love their decoys, you gotta lay back on, let's just say, take away all of the Jake and Tom decoys, or maybe, if you guys want to be bold, 2 hens. I know that's some crazy talk, but you must lay off on the decoying, because as the season goes on, those big old Toms and those little pathetic Jakes, they're not gonna be too inclined to, come up running up to them decoys and, have some action, or to kick that would-be Jake decoy's ass. For my personal recommendation, fellas, I would either go with 1 feeding hen or no decoys at all, because you want him to kind of search a little. Not too hard where he wants to give up, but hard enough to come into, shooting range so you can get a shot at him. And fellas, we're going to go over some very quick tips. Tip number 1, and this one's going to be a game changer. Pack lots of bug spray, because I don't know about you fellas, I don't know if you boys can see, I'm already being chewed alive out here. And it's just gonna get worse, because as some of you guys know, the black flies and the mosquitoes are gonna be your worst enemy. I mean your worst enemy. So remember, pack lots of bug spray. And a quick personal tip, you're gonna have a lot more success hunting these late season birds in the mid-morning. Because if you can hear one gobble, let's just say in the mid-morning, you're gonna have a lot easier time, bringing them in, because by the later stages of the season, the Tom has his little, group of ladies, or he's gonna be very close to the ladies. So either you have to be, right on top of them, or you just gotta get lucky enough that the hens doing want action. Because let's just be honest, fellas, he's not gonna choose you over his ladies. You have to be right under him and hope he just pitches down like almost, right in front of you, now away from you 50 yards where you can't shoot him. Or you can wait until the mid-morning, because when those mid-morning birds gobble, they are alone. And they are desperate. They want to not be alone. They want to have their lady friend to, do the business. So those mid-morning birds are going to be way more tolerant to lots of exciting calling and purring of the sort, to get them a bit frisky, and to get them into range, and to get them shot. Lesson number 2, and fellas, as a heads up, this whole entire thing is about adapting to the changing times, because it's not going to be the same good old early season when you hear all them turkeys and you see all them turkeys coming to you. The late season, fellas, it is going to be a struggle. For some of us, of course. Some of us are going to have it down, of course, but for us scrubs, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But that's what we're here for, to get over the hurdle so we can get some of these late season birds. But lesson number 2 is calling. Now, calling in the late season is a bit of a tricky thing, because sometimes you can get yourself a very excited Tom that wants, that love language, and sometimes you can get that Tom that wants nothing to do with you, and sometimes you have to change it up quick before he runs away. So some ways to combat this, you have to do a lot more laid back calling. You want to do a lot less of calling, I would say. I would go with every half hour, do a call. And of course, fellas, like, comment, subscribe, and don't be a degenerate. Alright, fellas, there's many important things to keep in mind when calling the late season. You want to keep it a little more laid back. Not so laid back when, when they can't hear you, but you want them to hear you, but you don't want them to kind of get, all, frightened. Because those turkeys have been called at all year, and they've been shot at all year. It's starting to get to the later stages of their breeding season, so they're not going to be as, excited, because they've been doing this for 2 months, and it's going to be more the down period. And of course, those hens, their eggs are starting to hatch, so there's going to be less of it going around. So as a quick tip, sometimes you want to put in some Jake Yelp, because in the really late stages, you may be finding yourself seeing that these Toms don't want anything to do with the hens, and they just want to be back with the boys. So you may have to be doing some Tom and Jake Yelps to, bring them fellas in, so you can get some shooting done. But we're going to be doing some demonstrations on how to be calling during the late season. So fellas, when calling at these birds, you want to make sure that you're doing kind of shorter bursts. You want to be doing long, dragged out yelps, you know, that you hear sometimes in the fall. You want to be doing short, loud bursts, because that's what hens honestly do most of the time. They do like very short yelping bursts. They're not just going yap, 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 yap. But of course, you will hear them do that sometimes, but it's not, you know, a constant thing. So you want to be keeping it kind of more laid back, because at this point in time of the year, these birds have been, you know, on the move constantly, and they're not gonna be all excited like they were earlier in the season. They're, you know, they're gonna be want to be done with it. So I would be doing shorter hen bursts of yelping, purring, of course, and throwing a few excited little clucks in there when you're doing your yelping, like I just demonstrated. But for some reason, fellas, if you find yourself that Tom doesn't want to be around the ladies, you can, of course, you know, mock him and do some Jake or Tom yelps, and hopefully that'll break him and you know, he want to join the boys. Lesson number 3, fellas. Now, this is, in my opinion, the most important topic that we're going to go over, and that is, of course, location. If you're not where those turkeys are, I'm just going to say out loud, fellas, you're not going to be killing anything. You're not going to be seeing anything. You're not going to be hearing anything. And of course, you're not going to have anything in the back of the truck, you know, the thump your chest to the fellas that you got yourself a big old Tom. You're going to have nothing. So you want to make sure that you're, of course, in a location where there's plentiful of Toms, Jakes, and other degenerate little turkeys, and where you have no problem finding them. I know for some of us fellas, we have to go on the public land, and that's a bit tough because there's other hunters around, and the birds are going to be way, way, way more pressured. So you may have to be hopping from spot to spot until you find yourself, you know, that right gobbler that wants some of that action, and of course it's going to come to you, which is obviously harder said than done, which also comes in another good tip: scouting. Now, scouting you should be doing all year. You should not be doing before hunting season. You should be doing all year, because those turkeys move roosts, they move around, they're not in the same spot all the time. You want to make sure that you're in an area where there's turkeys still around, because I've been in an area where that one morning there were like 5 to 6 Toms just gobbling their heads off. I mean, they were in my area. It was just perfect. I mean, those Toms got hung up and they didn't come in, but I was thinking to myself, next morning we're gonna get a Tom. We're gonna be in a better spot and we're gonna be getting ourselves a Tom. The next morning came, guess what, fellas? They were not there. They were not anywhere around. It's just like they disappeared. So you always want to be on top of scouting, because if you're not where those birds are, I'm just gonna say it, fellas, you're not gonna be getting a bird. You're not gonna be thumping the chest to the fellas that you got yourself that big monster Tom. Now, fellas, I know this was a kind of a quick sort of lesson, but the main thing to learn here is about adapting, and of course being on top of things. You always want to be on top of your scouting, that you're in an area where there's turkeys, because eventually you're gonna find that right gobbler that's gonna want to, you know, come into that lovely little spread or no spread that you're going with, and of course want to get shot. And adapting to like the climate and other things that the late season brings, like less gobbling, less of everything that's happening, because those hens, you know, the degenerate little eggs that they have are hatching, and those little turkeys are starting to move around, and those hens are not going to want any of that action anymore. So you're going to have less hens, you know, wanting the action, and you know, you're going to have those Toms wanting to be back with the boys, so you have to adapt to that too. The main thing to remember about late season turkey hunting is adapting to anything. That could be turkeys not on the property anymore, that could be turkeys not gobbling, that could be hens, you know, having their chicks and, you know, not wanting to have any of the action. Always about adapting to what's happening to your situation and always be on top of things. Besides that, fellas, this is sadly the end of the teaching lesson. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to see your last turkey skying video down here. And of course, you guys want to see your last fishing adventure, video down here. But besides that, I'll see y'all next video. See ya!